Under-Secretary-General of the United Nations, Guy Ryder, it's great to see you again.
Thank you.
You are in charge of the UN 80 initiative. You know, it's kind of human nature when we hit a milestone birthday to think about trimming some fat or reassessing our goals. Is that a bit of what's happening right now?
Well, it's true. An 80th birthday is a sort of a, I'm not there yet. It's time to take a look at yourself and see how you're doing in any circumstance. But I think the UN 80 initiative is a bit more than that, because it's trying to respond to the very particular conjuncture and circumstances that the United Nations finds itself in. And they're not easy circumstances, let's be honest. I think, you can look at the the political divisions that we face, the heightened geopolitical tensions which are, evident to us all and play out in the multilateral space. Deep divisions over some very fundamental issues. So we have to navigate that difficult political moment. That goes with, and in some ways the result, has as a result financial constraints. We're seeing resources shrinking, both the regular assessed resources that the UN has and voluntary contributions. That's hit very hard in some of our most important areas of activity, humanitarian being the most obvious example, with real life consequences that I think should worry everybody.
I was going to say, so, we're talking about disruptions in cash flow of billions of dollars.
Exactly.
And so what is the real world impact? Help people understand that.
Yeah, and it means lost lives, let's be clear. Lost lives from HIV/AIDS treatments withdrawn, not being able to get food to those who are going hungry. These are not peripheral issues. And I think if you add all of this up, I think there is a bit of a questioning about whether multilateralism, international cooperation, is a preferred option for the way we deal with the global challenges ahead of us. I think it's that sort of a moment. Maybe we're being a little bit introspective about this, but it feels that way.
So you think the very nature of multilateralism is on the line right now?
I think there is a basic questioning of, if we can deliver on the, 8-decade-old mandate that was given us, and it's a noble and, very, very modern mandate. The question is not whether it's a good mandate, the question is whether we are equipped and whether the world is ready to pursue it. And that's what the UN 80 initiative is about. And without sort of going into the technical minutiae of it, yes, we're looking at efficiencies. I mean, any organization like ours needs to look at how efficiently we do our work and how effectively we do it. So we're doing that. And yes, that's having, the painful consequence that we are reducing our budget and the number of people who work in the Secretariat. And not marginally.
No, the numbers are not small. I mean, from what we've seen, a 15% budget cut, 18% reduction in posts, which are of course people, human beings. That can't be solved with just attrition or turning the air conditioning down. So some tough decisions have to be made. How do you begin to decide what's nice to have versus what's necessary?
Well, that's 2 points that need to be brought out there. One is this is not a 20% across the board, unthinking, unreflecting cut in what we do. It is strategic. So there are some areas that we are going to protect and to sustain our resource inputs to, and others that we will have to deprioritize. And I think the Secretary General has been pretty clear in this regard that our obligations to developing countries, to those most in needs, are going to remain the top priority as we go through this admittedly difficult process. So it is strategic. It's not unthinking. The second thing is, an 18% loss of posts is not a great thing. Nobody wants to go through all of that. But we are trying to mitigate the impact at the human side of things. We have a pretty high level of vacancies in this system, so it won't be quite the elevator drop that it might look like, and we have to look at ways of redeploying people where we can, ways of looking at voluntary separations. We're going to do this in the best way we possibly can.
So in other words, as I've heard it compared to, this is not the UN's Doge moment.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
Right. In what ways is it completely different from that?
Well, one, we think it is the result of a very deep and reflecting analysis of what we do and how we do it. It's not a downsizing. It's not, as I say, one size fits all. And it's being done through existing procedures in ways that will help mitigate, I'm not going to say eliminate because that would not be honest, mitigate the impact on our colleagues and the way we do our work.
And meanwhile, this comes at a time when the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, by the Secretary General's own words, are on life support. How do you see this impacting positively or negatively as you try to pursue those goals?
Well, not just the SDGs, but of course the SDGs are central to what we do in this place. But the totality of the UN's mandate has to be pursued. Now, we may be smaller. We may have fewer resources at our disposal, not by choice, but by the choice of member states. But we have to therefore work better, work more effectively, prioritize, streamline, learn to do our jobs in ways that have more impact. I don't think we're alone as an institution in having to face those types of imperatives. Many of my friends who work in government, in public sector, I think, know all about these things. Keep our eye on the prize. The Secretary General is very clear. Whenever we go into the details of the UN80 initiative, impact, impact, impact. How is what we are thinking of doing and proposing going to rebound on our capacity to deliver impact where it's needed? So this is not abandoning ambition. This is not stepping back from responsibilities. It's navigating tough times with a view to getting the job done.
I recall during the 72nd General Assembly, then President Donald Trump with Secretary General Guterres talked about some very similar initiatives. Is this sort of a starting from scratch, or is this a continuation of a process?
It's not starting from scratch. You make a great point. When our Secretary General came into office in 2017, he was very clear. He came in with a reform agenda on management, on peacekeeping, on development. The system has been overhauled in quite remarkable ways. This predates my presence in the system. So we are building on what has gone before. But here's the message of the moment. You stand still and you lose. You go backwards effectively. Reform and change and improvement is a continuing imperative. And if you close your eyes to that, you're going to lose out. You're actually going to get yourself into trouble. None of this is comfortable, but our world isn't comfortable. And the responsibilities that we have, and again, I come back to this notion of impact, require us to keep moving in these directions. And the UN80 initiative, whilst the United States is extremely important in its organization, it's not a response to any one member states. It's a response to the demands and the needs of 193 member states.
I was just going to say, and so the difference between being president of a nation or the CEO of a company is that the Secretary General can put forth these proposals, endorse these proposals, but ultimately you need the buy-in of member states,
Absolutely.
Each of whom believes their mandate is the most important one on the table.
You're right.
Talk a little bit about the mandate process, first of all, to help people understand what that's like and what kind of opposition may come from member states because of these changes.
Okay, your first point is one that underlines anything we can say about the UN80 initiative. With some exceptions, member states will take the decisions. The Secretary General has a margin of maneuver. He can do things on his own authority, but member states are going to decide. So the Secretary General can propose, member states will dispose, and they will make the decisions, whether it is structural change in the organization, whether it is reviewing mandates, whether it is making budget adjustments. The Secretary General can propose, but member states will decide. Now, on this question of mandates, and it sounds a little bit obscure, what are these mandates? Well, these are simply the resolutions, the decisions that our General Assembly, the Security Council, and all the rest of the organizations in the UN have handed to us, giving us instructions to do things. In 8 decades of the life of the UN, they've handed down 40,000 such mandates, of which 4,000, so 1 in 10, are still cited in our current budget documents. Now, this is an awful lot of mandates and decisions and resolutions.
Give people a sense of what a mandate is. What would be something that comes forth?
They could tell us to undertake a study on a given subject, write a report, solve a conflict. I mean, it's really anything you can possibly imagine.
And does it run the gamut of importance? Like it can be as serious as a war and as unserious as...
Well, everything's serious to a certain degree in this place.
Right,
but
right.
Yes, it can be of different scales of ambition and different scales of investment of effort. And that's almost, you're getting ahead of me, the point that we have to make. We have decided to try and subject all of these mandates to rigorous examination. This was tried 20 years ago. It failed, with the aim of reviewing how mandates are created, how they're adopted, how we implement them, and eventually how they are reviewed. Sunset clauses, expiration. You know, we find that Manhattan is the town with more sunrises and sunsets in the UN. We create more things than we get rid of. So you get a sort of an accumulation. And frankly, we're stretching ourselves too thin. Very often these mandates are adopted with the caveat by member states that do this, do this, do this, do this, but please do it within existing resources, i.e. you're not getting any money, but we expect you to do things. That isn't a tenable way to operate in the longer term. So we are now, and it's in the hands of member states, they've just set up a working group. We're going to look at how mandates are handed down, how we try to implement them, and eventually how we review them for impact and eventual redundancy. A working group's been put in place. It's going to report by March of next year, and hopefully we can make progress, because this isn't detail. This is what defines the everyday work of the UN. The 3,000 pages of text that we give to member states every day of the working year, with interesting results on how many of them are read. The number of meetings we have to convene, the recurring resolutions that basically say the same thing year after year. It's only logical to take a look at all of this. And the problem is of gridlock, as you say. Everything's important to somebody, it wouldn't be there. So 193 member states insisting on their particular favorite item can lead to gridlock because nobody wants to get rid of anything. So we've got to break through that.
So there have been reform attempts in the past. This is not the first time, as we said, you know, conversations in 2017, but also 2006 and before that.
Sure.
Okay. So let's say this time you break through and something real begins to change. What does success look like, and what is the timeline for that?
Yeah, I mean, just to go to your question, I agree. I mean, reforms come, they go, they come, they go. Some have been successful. I don't think it's a purely negative record in the past, but even the fact of past failures shouldn't be a reason not to try again. We are learning from past efforts and trying to learn to do things better and more effectively. But what would this place look like if we succeed? Well, it will be a bit smaller, but it will be, I think, a secretariat and a system which uses its resources better, which harnesses all of the modern techniques of what we call UN 2.0, data, innovation, digital, strategic foresight, behavioral science to good effect, which is working cohesively together. This is a very fragmented system. We have about 140, we call them different entities, that make up what looks to me a bit like an archipelago of the UN system. Have them work together better. I think we need to win public confidence that what we're doing can actually impact on people's lives, and we have to work with member states to say that this sort of value question about whether multilateralism is the preferred option in the affirmative. And I think we can.
I think you touched on a really important point, which is public opinion. And I think that to many people, the workings of the UN are pretty obscure.
Very.
And that may contribute a bit to mistrust. We've seen the UN still enjoys a relatively high public approval rating globally, not in every country, but in general it's declining, as are most multilateral institutions. How do you see this particular initiative impacting trust in a positive way?
You know, I'm one of those, I have a very simple sort of philosophy on these things. You're basically trusted to the extent that you deliver results in people's lives. You know, if we were a government, our election or non-re-election would depend on the results. So I think, and I agree with you about the obscurity of process and language, which we sometimes suffer from. But it is purely about organizing ourselves to deliver results that impact on people's lives. That's what we have to do. And my experience, and I think recent surveys would confirm this, is, you know, the abstract concept of the UN is highly regarded and respected and approved. I think that people's doubts arise from whether or not we're able to deliver that concept, to make it a reality in current political circumstances. And that's where people maybe say, nice place, great idea, but come on.
Yeah.
It don't really work, do it? And
Got
that's where
it.
we have to make the difference.
Finally, we are at the 80th birthday of the United Nations. What is the best argument that you have that 10 years from now, 28 decades from now, the UN should still be a player on the global stage?
The best, well, not the best, the most persuasive reality is without the global meeting place and the global place where you can actually work out solutions, our global challenges will not find adequate responses. In that sense, whatever criticisms one may have of this place, it has to exist and it has to function, because these global challenges only have global solutions, and the United Nations, or something which replicates the features of the UN system, is the only place where legitimate, inclusive global solutions can be worked out. And 10 years from now, if unaddressed, the global challenges that we feel so strongly today will be felt even more strongly. So we need this place. The UN has no automatic right to exist, but it has a very clear rationale to exist. And if we're able to live up to the ambitions of the change and improvement agenda that we have on the table now, we can be there in 10 years' time and making that difference.
Guy Ryder, best of luck to you during this General Assembly. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you.